Woo! All right, guys, we are back. We have ourselves another game. A team that actually I've heard of. I haven't seen play, but I've definitely heard of these guys. Vivid Eclipse is going to be taking on, I don't actually know what MIM stands for, but Team MiM Vitality. Actually, I can't even ask the teams what it is because I have to show your webcam. But I hear Vitality. I was talking to these guys just before the Amateur League. They're a whole bunch of them are from Dawngate. And if you guys don't know what Dawngate is, it was the EA MOBA that unfortunately went under. They pulled the plug and they killed all the services and they redistributed all the personnel. But it was a MOBA that I thought was actually very innovative. It was fun to play, and unfortunately, it never really kind of got out of beta, so to speak. It never really hit the shelves. It never had that big marketing push, but it was a fun game. I definitely enjoyed it, and I'm curious to see what kind of talent they're going to be bringing here to Heroes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of style they end up with. I know that we've been able to see some styles coming from, previous League of Legends pros, previous StarCraft pros. You can kind of see that in their play. So I'm not too familiar with that game, so you'll have to tell me if you see anything that's an indicator.
Yeah, well, a lot of the skills should actually transfer over very nicely. Because if you play a lot of the others, there's a lot of games you can choose from. Han, Dota, LoL, Dawngate, Strife. There's a lot of different games in this genre right now. But the core concepts of coming over, you picking a hero, a team comp, and team fighting all exist. It's just there's no items, there's no gold, there's no laning, there's no Kongor, there's no Baron. There's not really that quintessential big objective. It's just now it's a series of objectives. There's definitely the bosses that you can take here, the bruisers, the siege camps, and of course the objectives as well. So there's a lot of transferable skills, but sometimes people do struggle a little bit, and we'll have to see if that will be the case here. They have, however, started the ban as we're going into Dragonshire for their game as we continue on into the winners bracket. So, Miss Hannah, let us begin with the drafts.
Well, as we saw, MiM Vitality actually banning Stitches right off the bat. So like we talked about, we see a lot of first pick Stitches. We see a lot of people wanting to have him, and they're just saying, you know what, we don't want to deal with him. We don't want you to have him. We're willing not to have him, banned him right off. And then Vivid Eclipse following up with a ban on Zeratul. So again, making sure that they're not going to have to deal with that sneaky, rewindy damage going on in their base.
Sneaky, rewindy damage.
Sneaky, rewindy damage.
I like
it.
I like how you put that. Sneaky rewinding. Yeah.
And we're seeing some first picks. First pick Nazebo from MiM Vitality. What do you think of that?
It's definitely, at least amongst the more competitive circuits, definitely a very good first pick, especially on the Dragonshire, because, we do know where these shrines are. Zombie walls, especially at some of those choke points in and around the shrine areas, can do some really good body blocking. And you can also set yourselves up some really interesting spots to put down the Ravenous Spirit. So having a Nazebo first pick is very strong. The specialists definitely have a place here in Heroes of the Storm. Perhaps the other game frameworks, they haven't really allowed this kind of innovation, but because team levels and group experience, like there's no individual carry, everybody's the carry in this game. It's really is a good spot for a lot of these specialists, and Nazebo is seen quite frequently. So I think, as a laner, he's great. As a pusher, he's great. As a level 10 comes around, he gets a Ravenous. His team fight potential is absolutely great.
And we see them picking up Sergeant Hammer and ETC. ETC, as we talked about, pretty strong, solid tank, and then a actual tank, Sergeant Hammer.
Team tank so far, yeah.
Yay, tanks. And, I'm excited to see that here on Dragonshire because it can be really annoying anywhere, but it can especially be really annoying here when they can just kind of park out of the way and continue wailing on a tower while you're scrambling to get those shrines. That's what they're called, the shrines.
Shrines, towers, objectives, things.
Bruisers, whatever. Yeah.
It's actually very interesting as you go team to team to team. I've played with a lot of the team members of a lot of different teams as I've grown my contact list for tournaments over the last few months, and they always have different nomenclature for different things. It's like, go get the boss, go get the easies, go get the golem, go get the the big guy. All right, I think that's this thing, right? Yeah.
We were talking about that on Eye on the Storm. We're going to be the hipsters who have the old names for things.
The old names. Yeah. The original names, yeah.
Absolutely. So then we see a Rhaegar pick, some good healing, some good support. He has that awesome mount I guess he turns into a wolf instead of mounting. So it's an
Ghost
instant
wolf.
mount, which is great. And then we see some Arthas. We did talk about how Arthas got nerfed, but we are seeing him still being played. So still strong, you think?
Well, with Stitch's bans and ETC already on the table, most teams would likely not go for an Arthas in his current state. They would maybe go more for a Mirrodin, or no, I'll just leave it at a Mirrodin because I don't think there's really another hero that didn't get the nerf bat as of late. But he's still, I mean, he can still do what he needs to do. He's a great AoE controller because of his Tempest. He could still root people for insta grabs and insta kills. But he just perhaps maybe doesn't do as much survivability as he used to. So nerfed, yes, still, but he's not bottom tier trash by any means. So having a good frontliner like an Arthas can definitely go a long way. It's a little curious you don't see a Mirrodin, but at the same time, a lot of these teams, they still have their styles to take into account.
Yeah, especially if you're coming, this is the amateur league, and if you've got someone who's a specialty of yours, especially just coming out of this last patch, maybe you've got to stick to it to make sure you can support your team the best way possible. And then we see a Vala and a Tyrande pick. Now, Tyrande is one that I've always had a tough time wrapping my head around. So maybe you can give me some insight on why you think this team would pick Tyrande over their other options.
It has to do a little bit with the map and a little bit of the team comp, because they're probably they're probably trying to predict who's about to come out. And if they predicted Illidan, they were probably going to be right, because you see the Rhaegar. If this isn't an Uther at the end here, I'd be very interested to see a solo Rhaegar and an Illidan. But a double support Illidan is very strong combo right now, especially in some of the more unorganized games. If you go into solo queue with this, well, you're probably going to have a good time. It's defeatable for sure, but having a Tyrande there is a stun, so it's a counter initiate. She can also put up the Hunter's Mark for extra shred on top of people because they take increased damage when you're marked. So that's going to be great on survivable heroes like Arthas, like Illidan, who was deceptively tanky, but it only comes down to auto attack for tanks. If you can stun him out, or you can get a chunk of ability damage on top of him, it's really good. The stun as well for Nazeebo. Nazeebo, if he's channeling out that Ravenous, he's very susceptible to stuns. And Tyrande has a decent range, especially at level 16, with Lunar Blaze on top of the Lunar Flare. So that's a really nice, way to kind of deal with a lot of the tools that you see there on MiM Vitality. And they're actually going to add a Falstead on the back of that. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But Tyrande also has information control. The Owls and the Shadow Stock, reveals all heroes, cloaks you. On this map, I'd actually expect to see a Starfall because, you're gathering at the Dragon, you're gathering at the Shrines. There's a lot of big potential for AoE there. And you also have the ETC. So you throw down the ETC, you got the Hammer, Strafe from Vala, and a Starfall. Good luck living through that.
Yeah, GLHF. So what about this Falstad? Falstad's got the ability to fly across the map, and that can be invaluable when you're trying to capture these the shrines. And how do you think he's going to synergize with the rest of this team?
Well, as you said, flying around, it used to be that you go bribe on the Falstad, but because of his recent rework, a lot of people actually prefer Power Throw, which is an extended range on his hammer, which can really actually catch you off guard if you don't notice it early enough. But, flying around, you can get one shrine bottom, fly top, get another shrine, and then somebody on your team in the middle can actually pick up the dragon, or vice versa. You get shrines, you fly mid, you can easily get the dragon because you don't have that mount time. You don't have to run there. So you can definitely do a lot of big cross-map pressure. And, earlier on, again, if you fly around with a bribe, you can just easily fly to a creep camp and bribe it out. There's a lot of creeps to look around for, a lot of mercenaries on this map. So the Falstad itself is good, but as we have mentioned before, he kind of falls short in terms of some of the team fighting comps, or just as a generalized pick. Vala is definitely rated much higher than the Falstad right now. Tychus is still actually rated much higher despite his nerf as of late as well. And that's your 3 range DPS, because nobody, as of yet, I don't think we've seen a Raynor since his rework, because he was bugged, but now that he's not, I'm not entirely too sure we'll see him because nobody's been practicing him because he's been bugged and banned.
Good point. And then finishing it out, Vivid Eclipse pulls out a Malfurion. So they've got him to heal and to do a lot of crowd control. They have, like you said, it looks like they want to get people in a group and just melt them down.
Yeah. It's also a good healing pick. Whoa, all right, these guys. I thought we had another minute, but they've decided that nope, they're ready to go. The Malfurion pick is likely to go Tranquility, I want to say. I wouldn't see too much use of the Silence because we don't have really anybody else on the back for the heals. But if they are, then you're going to be seeing a lot of dependence on the Tyrande and possibly even groupies from ETC to keep these guys up and going. But with that Malfurion, I expect to see a Tranquility. He's a great healing support. He also has the follow-up combos with the roots. I mean, we have Mosh Pit ready to go. We got stuns, and now we got roots. That's a lot of crowd control for the team. So can they use that for a win here on the Dragonshire? This is a very strong map for the Sergeant Hammer. And I think in terms of a Protect the Hammer comp, we have a very good setup. Because you just let her siege up and you can do a lot of damage, and you have to go through the front wall of ETC, the stuns, and the double heals. There's a lot to get through to get to that hammer, so we'll have to see. Can Vivid Eclipse bring this to a win? Well, we'll have to find out.
5, 4.
Yeah, Vivid Eclipse
3,
starting with the they were starting with 3 bottom lane and 1 in each of middle and top, while their opponents, MiM Vitality, are going to have 1 mid and 2 in both top and bottom. Why do you think they made those choices?
Well, it comes down to the map, and we'll tell you guys a little bit about the about Dragonshire in a minute, but there's a creep camp here, and here, and here. 3 creep camps, 3 mercenaries to choose from in this bottom lane. I call this a lot of the time the party lane, because this is where you will typically find 6, 7, 8 heroes, especially between early and mid game. And because there's just so many objectives down here. Top has nothing in that regard. So that's why you won't usually see a 2-1-2 split. But, you know, these guys, as I said, their previous competitive experiences from Dawngate and a 2-1-2, well, there's only 2 lanes in Dawngate. It would be a 2-2 jungle for them. So it's perhaps that they're adapting something of similar to that just out of experience and habit.
Yeah, and it looks like the Nazebo running down to join them as they realize they're outnumbered here, and they've only got to have one person babysitting the other lane and soaking that ever-valuable.
Yep, and with him coming down, that zombie wall nearly took home the kill on top of the siege tank. And now you see blue all the way back into their base. They're going to have to tap that fountain to get back into this. But so the Dragonshire, Miss Annie, can you tell us a little bit about what we're seeing? Because something just spawned bottom.
Absolutely. So as you can see, there's a shrine here bottom. There is a shrine at the top. The sun and the moon, the north and the south. And if your team controls both of those, you will activate the dragon shrine in the middle. If you do, and you manage to channel the dragon without being hit or, stunned away from that channel, you will become the Dragon Knight and put on the dragon suit, if you will. And then you have special powers. You can breathe fire, you can kick opponents out of the way, and you can do just a ton of damage to structures. So generally, teams are going to grab that and just push with all their might to try to take that the advantage of the objective.
Yeah, I believe it's triple damage to towers. Might even be quad, but don't quite quote me on that one. So both shrines right now are red, which means they're streaming here into the mid. And you can see red is now rotated up. So MiM Vitality actually is going to grab themselves a 2-minute Dragon Knight, and here he comes. He's going to be doing some big damage on top of this middle gate. Yeah, I don't get to see the passive here, so don't exactly. I'm pretty sure it's triple damage to bullback, though. He's a big siege vehicle. You grab him, you get a free health point bar, which you can just spend as you want. Already, the gate is down. We're looking for a tower here as well, and, well, there's the football kick on top of All-Stars as well. Vivid Eclipse, they respond by bringing up some people into the top, but you'll notice that the top lane from both teams are actually still there. They're both still soaking their experience. Bottom lane still has a false dead, still has a hurt. That's how you say that word, but this, these guys, they definitely are showing a little bit more knowledge here in terms of the competitive nature of the maps, because they're not all 5 collapsing on top of Dragon Knight. You're going to see that a lot in solo queue games. Having 2 others in the back while you push out, sure, you only get a tower or 2 and a gate, but you also now have that level advantage, and you were able to soak. And, hey, sometimes things can go really good, but at the very worst, you took away the objective from the opponent, and you're able to get one of your own while still soaking.
And MiM Vitality managed to do a lot of damage with that first Dragon Knight, but the Dragon Knight does change throughout the game. Can you tell us a little bit about how he scales?
He scales, I think, a little bit better than a Siege Golem, those bigger, beefier guys that we just saw in the last map. So by the 20-minute mark or so, I mean, you're going to be hitting 7, 8, 900 damage auto attacks. And keeps and forts, I mean, they have a few thousand hit points, which means if you're almost doing 1,000 damage per auto attack, you're going to be able to push down really fast. I believe like a 25-minute Dragon Knight can almost just solo a core with 5 heroes on him because the hit points scale as well as the damage. So yes, as the game goes on later and later, you're going to be looking to pick and choose your battles based upon the timing of who can get the Dragon Knight, because the victor will typically get a really big map pressure boost.
Absolutely. And so we're seeing that the blue team here is kind of sticking to this one man each lane and then a 3-man roaming squad. What do you think of that strategy here?
Well, as long as you're in the lane when the creeps die, that's how you get the experience. As we're looking at Hurt, possibly if he got out of position, he's actually really low. And he's 3 assassins, well 2.5 because Nazeebo's there as well. But oh, they're actually going to go on top of Hospital instead. That was a great zombie wall there from the Nazeebo. And this 4-man comp coming out from Red is actually now taking home quite a few kills. 2 looking for the 3rd there on top of Hurt, and Falstead can't quite seal the deal. But either way, they get themselves 2 more kills, and they weren't able to steal out the Giants. Oh, did the ETC get owls?
ETC went down.
What though? What hit him?
I believe it was Falstad. That last little...
Did he power throw it? Oh yeah, so he does have power throw. All right, my bad for missing that. But he threw the hammer right through this gate, right through this fountain, and got the kill.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good of them, actually. Now, they took those kills, right? And the shrine spawned red, and now they're collapsing into mid to get themselves another Dragon Knight.
Yeah, keeping Vivid Eclipse busy, and all the while getting those shrines quickly and grabbing the Dragon Knight as well, and running top with the Dragon Knight instead of just pushing down that mid lane. Noticing that they've only got 1 player up here in the top, while the rest are trying to defend where they thought the Dragon Knight was going to be.
And you see Falstead in the bottom lane, still soaking, still pushing. You see Illidan here, soaking up against Hospital here. So yes, we are doing a nice soaking in other lanes, but putting pressure in a 3rd. They took out the entire gate. This Dragon Knight more powerful than its predecessor. And look at the experience lead. We've now, between those 2 kills, which got us 2 Dragon Knights, and now because there's multiple towers down and we're pushing in for another, whole level and a bit lead. That's really phenomenal here from Vitality.
Yeah, and we're seeing MiM Vitality make decisions that show a lot of restraint. With the Dragon Knight, a lot of times it's tempting to just push and push and push and go deeper and deeper into a lane. But it looks like Anubis was making the decision, okay, I got this tower, I got this wall. Time for me to go to another lane. Time for me to take out this creep wave, and kind of showing that they don't have to fully commit anywhere that they know they're not going to win.
Right. Yeah, and this game, you don't have to go full ham. You don't have to go full speed ahead. You can play it out a little bit more evenly, take those calculated decisions. And so far, right now, Vitality is maintaining about a level lead over their opponents. And they did get their heroics out early. Nice zombie wall, but it's not quite enough for the block. There we go. Illidan jumps right over, gets that block. He is going to pay for it himself. We saw the stage dive come in here from Hurt, and now Falstead, he's going to be flying in. We're looking for the kill on top of Rhaegar. Looks like he's going to be okay, though. But Hurt, he used some of those abilities. He can't actually stop out the Ravenous, finally. We do get that out. We saw the roots down there from the Malfurion as well, keeping that Nazeebo in place, but the return damage is just too much. The siege tank pops and falls to pieces, and by the end of it, 2-1.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of that crowd control go to good use, but if you can control the crowd but not quite kill them fast enough, then they are going to turn around and wail on you. So I'm going to be really interested to see how this plays out as we continue to scale up with XP.
It was actually 2-2 because they basically popped Tyrande very early in that fight. So despite that level lead, they only traded out 2 for 2, but you saw some of the strength more of this comp. ETC needs to get in and interrupt that Ravenous as quick as they can. And Tyrande needs to get off these stuns, needs to get off these Starfalls, which I believe she does. Yep, so she does have the Starfall. We do get the Tranquility on the Malfurion, so big AoE heals and big AoE damage with big crowd control. Well, we haven't really seen that come.
So now we are seeing Vivid Eclipse taking a shrine, hoping to get the Dragon Knight for themselves this time, but no one in the top lane. So I'm not sure if they're just trying to make sure that their opponents don't grab another Dragon Knight or if they're really going for the Dragon Knight this time. Considering they've got all 4 in the bot lane, right now it looks like they're just trying to defend that bot lane.
So putting 5 into the bottom lane, obviously, you don't have any pressure top, and Sim Silly there is actually still just pushing in unimpeded. That is something that they're going to have to deal with. Otherwise, they're going to have a lot of they're going to be missing out that fort top, which is a lot of map control and pressure that shouldn't give up for free. So you can see they're pushing bottom. They know they got the 5v4 advantage. So instead of dealing with top, they're going to try to just kill out bottom. Good stun into roots. They get the kill over the wall. Illidan, absolutely no chance. Didn't even get off a Metamorphosis. And that's actually a really good kill for them. So they're going to try to trade out a fort for a fort. And as long as they keep one of those shrines, there's not going to be a Dragon Knight.
Yeah, and if they can say, you know what, we don't need a Dragon Knight to push, we can just do it ourselves, and we're keeping you from grabbing a Dragon Knight, right now, the benefit is all in their favor, as they melt 3 of the opposing team.
Yep. They didn't have, they didn't have the frontliner. Arthas wasn't there. He was pushing down this top. Top is actually still getting pushed with 2 of those bruisers, and Arthas deciding, well, I know where the enemy team is. I'm going to take their bruisers. This will put more pressure on top. But the trade-off is, fort for fort. But Red did lose out that team fight, and now they're going to lose out probably all 3 of these mercenaries in the bottom lane.
We do see Illidan and Falstad coming in to contest, but engaging against all 5 is probably not a great idea, so they do back off, which is probably smart.
Something that definitely a lot of quick match and Hero League players could learn. 2v5, basic math says you're outnumbered. Don't go in. It's cool, guys. You can just give up the objective. No problem. But
again, showing that patience. Very good.
The restraint, I think, was what you said a little bit earlier. Which is, I think is a fantastic word for it. Yeah, it's they are showing proper restraint.
I know it well as someone who really likes to dive and then cause my team to go 1 man down.
I've seen your character today. It's pretty on point, but it's definitely very aggressive. So if your team doesn't follow you, yes, you might look up and see 5 in. It happens. It happens. Illidan players have to deal with the same idea because they have to dive in. And if there's nobody to follow them up, well, they can go down.
Right.
So
looks like MiM Vitality going to be taking that bottom shrine, so they're getting into position to take that Dragon Knight again if Vivid Eclipse is not able to jump down and grab one of those shrines, which I think they're going to be able to.
So if you can't contest a shrine, contest the mid, because you can't become a dragon if you can't get the channel off, and I believe it's 5-second channel. But yeah, they're going to do exactly that for the contest, but finally we got a Metamorphosis out. Oh, Rhaegar is so close to healing himself, but right now it is a 2-for-1 swap with Starfall in the back, not really hitting too many of the targets, but I want to point out, Arthas went Sindragosa, which is that giant bone dragon of ice. That's why you see this ice on this structure. The structure is literally frozen. It can't shoot because of that ultimate. So usually you would see Arthas with the ghouls, and he can sacrifice ghouls to heal himself. That's why he's known legendary as the guy that just never dies, because he has self-heal and then more self-heals. But because of the Sindragosa, he was able to slow out the entire enemy team. They froze out the fort, which means they didn't fire back, and they created enough space to grab that dragon, which is now starting to rampage. Takes out the mid, goes up top, decides, nope, that's not a good idea. That restraint coming back into play. And, well, I don't know if he's actually going to bother going back mid or all the way bottom. It's a heck of a trek from top to bottom lane, though, Anna.
Yeah, especially in the Dragon Knight, because you are on a timer, so he's only got 23 seconds left to make something of this dragon. But that restraint coming into play, because if you are going to put yourself in danger by doing damage, then it's probably not worth doing. So very smart play, and kind of waiting until his opponents get busy with something else to walk in and say, oh, I'll take down this well, maybe I'll do some damage here, or maybe some here.
Yep,
but I know that when I'm in
dead.
I know when I'm in the dragon, I feel much more rushed. So inspiring play there.
Yeah, you don't have to go full hand. That's definitely I think a general lesson that a lot of people are still kind of figuring out. It's okay to not push someone. Because, hey, even if you didn't get the damage, the Dragon Knight is going to be resting for another 2 minutes.
Right.
So you have a little bit of a window where you don't have to worry about the shrine, but you might have to worry about getting killed. Wow, Pablo really low on that hit points. But here comes the return damage. ETC is going to stave dive more or less to the left. And it looks like it's going to be enough if they take home the kill on top of that Metamorphosis. The Ravenous Spirit, though, is doing so much damage. They weren't able to CC Nazeebo whatsoever, but I'm not too sure it'll matter. The collapse is actually real, and Vivid Eclipse is actually going to tie up the level leader.
Yeah, you mentioned Illidan jumping in and needing the support as soon as he does. It looks like he jumped in and got on the other side of the enemy team and had nothing to run back to for safety. So that was probably what started tipping the scales. What do you think?
Back at the draft, I said, a double support Illidan is really strong because you got now, 2 sources of healing, probably some shields, a healing ward, maybe a cleanse in there, and you just keep supporting him and supporting him. But the one support, Rhaegar he doesn't. The problem with his ult is that it's on a timer, right? Like, it's a short delay before it bursts, which means you can still kill Illidan before it bursts, and even with the Metamorphosis and the first aid that he has. And he doesn't have first aid. Never mind. That's a problem. He has follow through. So, yeah, we don't have the tools here to keep Illidan up, which is why he's just going down quite a bit, actually.
I wanted to follow up too. You mentioned about Arthas having Syndragosa. I had heard some murmurings from some people who are fans of Arthas that they may be playing around with Syndragosa in this new patch. Why do you think they made the choice to use that ult on this map?
Well, a lot of these lanes, they're not the biggest of lanes, and a lot of the times, again, the fights are going to be centered around shrines, around the middle, around creep camps, and these are not exactly the most open of areas. So having a nice big linear ult, that's why Falstad, whenever he goes Hinterland's Blast, if you fight in the jungle with a Falstad, especially some of these corridors here, it's going to hit almost everybody that's in that corridor. Like, there's no way to dodge it because there's walls in front of you. It's a long, narrow shaft. And that's what some of these ults actually excel at doing, is those long linear damages. In small spaces means you can't avoid them. It's also, again, control. Sometimes you'll see, Arthas has the Tempest, the Howling Blast, and now with the Syndragosa, that's a lot of slows, a lot of CC. Sometimes you'll see comps actually around the level 16 talent of Executioner, which adds 40% auto attack damage to anybody that's CC'd on the enemy team. So you can actually start hitting like a truck on some of those. I don't actually see that talent represented here tonight, so I think it's literally just for the control. I mean, they know that Arthas, his survivability got a big hit in the last patch, so they're trying other avenues. And, well, I mean, it was working all the way up to the last fight.
Right. We see the entirety of Vivid Eclipse pushing at the top lane, while a bottom push is happening here with Illidan and Falstad from MiM Vitality. And Nazeebo is pushing all by himself in the mid, so I don't know. Who do you think is going to come out on top in terms of the XP gains there?
Well, a 5-man push comp will definitely do more than a 1 and a 2. I'll tell you that. So you see Nazeebo, he's stopped pushing. Bottom lane has decided to just say YOLO, and they're going to go for it. But 3-man defense against a Sergeant Hammer is not going to work. And the Sergeant Hammer, supported by 4 teammates, is going to far out push anything you can do in the bottom. So yeah, they finally discovered that, and they're going to come up to this. Both teams do have level 20 though. So here, that was the Shock and Awe, that was the Syndragosa, and here comes the Metamorphosis as well. Big AoE damage, hit quite a few of these guys. The Ravenous Spirit doing some amazing work in the back, but despite all that damage, Malfurion's Tranquility has healed everybody back to full. They were not able to burst anyone down, even with all these ults.
And they do have one player down, so it's 4 versus 5. And they came into this fight late, so definitely the advantage on the part of the Eclipse right now. And they've got to be really careful. MiM Vitality's got to be really careful not to die, because if they do, they're going to put themselves at a kind of a permanent disadvantage in a very vulnerable position.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do at late game is kind of lemming style, where you go in one by one. And, the ants go marching one by one.
To their death.
To their death, yeah, and that's the problem, because when you have these staggered death timers, which are 60 seconds plus at this level, and it's really hard to mount any kind of defense, because you're smashing your head against a wall, and the wall's not giving in, which means you're going to give in, which means you're probably going to lose. So a 5-man pushed into the top, you know, it swept the fort, it swept the gate, it swept the keep, it got a kill. You know, I said this last game, the best kind of late game advice you can have is strength in numbers.
And we are seeing the first Dragon Knight from Vivid Eclipse, if I'm not mistaken, at level 20 and 18 minutes into the game. So a really good testament to what we were talking about with that patience, you know, really weighing the costs and benefits, because apparently the more defensive style, kind of being on the back foot until now, is giving them the advantage they need now here in the game.
Now, I said, you know, about a level 20 or so, you're going to be doing about 1,000 damage auto attack, 900 to 1,000. He's doing 975, 925. He's doing a lot of auto attack damage. The keep is down. It's dead. You can keep attacking this Dragon Knight, but you know he's just going to explode and replace the hit point bars. So, you All-Stars here in the Tyrande, not exactly the most offensive of guys, but now he's getting these big auto attacks off on top of the opponents. He's soaking up a lot of the damage. They get 1 kill, they get 2 kills. They're looking for the 3rd. So late game Dragon has really paid off with that skin.
Absolutely. And now they've got all 5 team members here at the core. Think it's going to end here?
It's very likely to end because we still have a lot of the ults. The bigger thing is we have this untouched Sergeant Hammer who can outrange the core, and nobody on his team is dead. It's 3 dead opponents. You got a hammer. Everybody's still alive. The Tranquility is going right now and doing amazing things. Can I bring up healing quick? Question. 84,000 healing from the Malfurion.
Not bad.
63 from the Rhaegar, but 84 from that Malfurion. So if you can't burst out the big healing guy, well, you're going to have a bad time. And because a lot of these team fights did go the way of Vivid Eclipse, they lost out some early dragons, but they won most of the team fights. They were able to put themselves into the late game, which is where Sergeant Hammer shines, which is where Malfurion shines, which is where ETC shines. So they were able to get that win because they were able to not overextend. I mean, they died 8 times, sure. The opponents died 15, and 1 dragon was all they needed to win at the end.
Yeah, in the face of how many dragons did the other team have? Something like
3?
4?
3 or 4.
Yeah, something like that.
Yep.
So good lessons to learn here, kind of along the same theme as the last game. But in thinking about what MiM Vitality could have done better, you know, where would we go from there? I think they put up a really strong performance, but I guess the only thing that I could think of is, like you said, that lemming style. Just 1 too many times they put someone in the wrong position, and once they were down 1 person, couldn't do too much to the opposing team. What do you think?
Grouping up, definitely the late game, we saw that weird split push while they're losing a fort. I mean, they traded out some towers for a fort, or for a fort and a keep. It's not the best of trades, just from straight numbers. And also drafting, like, what were they intending to do with the Illidan? Was he the initiation? Was he just literally the melee DPS? He didn't go a very defensive build, which meant he was very glass cannon, and the enemy team really punished that. He died 5 times overall. Rhaegar died 6, and usually Rhaegar as a solo healer will not cut it. Don't get me wrong, I love my fight dog. I got a master skin fight dog. I love solo healing in Quick and Hero League, but this is a very different beast. Competitive with everybody on the team comps. You're drafting to your strengths. It's very different. And catching out a Rhaegar, he has no cleanse. He has no shields if he's caught. There's no fatal resets. If you catch him and he's dead, well, you're out all your healing. So,
you know, we also praised them for being really patient with that Dragon Knight, considering that they had a little bit of an advantage in the early game and were consistently getting those Dragon Knights. Should they have been a little more risky? Should they have pushed a little bit harder instead of being quite so conservative?
It's definitely something to mull over. The replays will kind of show us the errors, more mid-game. But the big turning point was the mid-fight after, I think, the 2nd Dragon, because we finally had a win in a team fight for Vivid. And it looks like they didn't really let it go past that. So, you know, you got to respect the hammer. You got to blow up the Malfurion, especially if he's a solo healer. I mean, Tyrande did about 24,000 healing or so, but she was definitely there more for the control and the information game. Shredding down somebody with the Hunter's Mark, like 25% more damage is a lot of damage. And you put that on an Illidan, and a glass cannon Illidan, no less. He blows up. So definitely some things to look at in terms of the drafting. What was the purpose of the Odin? Why was there no double support for it? Could a Zeratul, could a Thrall, could a Kerrigan have done a better job? And coordinating your burst on top of the squishy Malfurion might have been definitely a little bit more of a safer strategy to go. But I think it was more or less the mid game that Hammer kind of hit her stride. ETC hit his stride, and they guys kind of lost it from there.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to see what we will see next from Vivid Eclipse. And like you said, MiM Vitality has another chance. It's double elimination bracket, so we'll see them again as well.
I think we're going to try to jump into Dwarves United up against the Rising Taquitos. But we'll let you guys know in the next match as we come back, because the Team HeroesHype Amateur League will continue into its third round here, the winners, which still best of one. But either way, we'll have a game for you in just a few. So